In this lesson, we are going to be extracting the validation that we have here into a data transfer object so that whatever we do matches what we just described here at the top. We said all data will be coming through to the controller through a data transfer object, and that will be responsible for also doing the validation, and the controller will not have to deal with that. So to implement this, we are going to be using a third-party package by Sparty. And if you've been developing anything in Laravel, you must have heard of the Sparty because they produce amazing packages. And we are going to be using one of their incredible packages called the Laravel data package. This package is an extension of the regular form request that comes with Laravel, except it adds some really nice functionality because you can use it to transfer data around or to move data around in your application. You basically create a class that contains the data as properties, which means that at any given point when you're passing data around, it's very easy for you to know what properties you expect in that object. So we'll quickly install the package here by copying the composer command. Make sure we are in the right folder, so cd skill meter, and here we'll just say composer requires Sparty Laravel data. While that's installing, we can just copy this command to publish a configuration file, even though we will not be using it. And if you come here, you do have a new configuration file called data.php. Again, we will not be using this, but if you read the documentation, you can change whatever you want to change in that configuration file. With that, all we need to do here is create a structure for how to handle our data, okay? How to handle requests coming in through data transfer objects. So in my app directory, I'm going to create a new folder called data, and that's going to hold all the data that we expect from the user. In the data directory, I'm going to create subfolders. So because we are working with the authenticated route or authentication routes at this point, I'm going to create a new folder called auth. And in here, let's create a new class to hold the user registration data, okay? So here, I'm going to create a new file called register user data.php. And this is a regular PHP class. Let's just generate a namespace for it. And again, this is a regular PHP class. So here we just say class register user data, and it will extend the Sparty data that we just installed. So this is an extension of the Sparty data. So whatever data class we create will extend the Sparty data, and from there it does inherit all the functionalities that comes with the Sparty data. So if you go to this trait, you will see there's tons of other traits and so many different methods that you can explore on your own time, but we are going to be using some of those features here. So what we do here is all the data that we are passing to the system from the front end, first name, last name, username, all that data will be stated in here as properties of this class, okay? So let's start with the first name. It will just simply be public string first name. And again, because this is a regular PHP class, wherever you call this class, you can directly access this property. And that is as easy as that. Let's also do one for the last name, username, email, and password. So I'm just going to say last name, username, email, and password. Now, if you had more fields that we're passing through in your registration, you can do that. And if you have an optional field, because everything that you state here is required, if you want a field that is optional, all you need to do is have a question mark at the start of the data type, and you provide whatever the field name is, all right? So in this case, if I were to use this, I can actually create this class or instantiate this class without providing this optional field. But we didn't have an optional field in this case, so let's just remove it. Now, the beauty of this package again is that besides being a regular PHP class that does data transfer for us, it also implements a lot of the functionality in Laravel's form request, so we can directly do a validation in here. So in here, we have to validate the data by just saying public static function rules. Again, this will return an array of rules, and can just say return an array. Okay, see that error is disappeared because we are returning an array here. And this is where we basically have to define our rules. We already have the rules done here. We just need to copy all the validation rules that we stated in the controller over to our validation method in the data transfer object. And then we can conveniently get rid of this. So here, let's import the password class, and that is the password rules class. So be careful what you import. If you import the wrong class, there is a problem. So we import that password class, and it handles the validation for us. We are going to be looking at more things that you can do in this class later on. For now, this is all we need for the registration. And now coming back to the controller, instead of passing in the request that comes from the front end, we have to pass in the register user data that we just created and upload that data. And here I can directly return the data to array, for instance. Okay, so this basically serializes all the properties of this data class into an array and sends it back to the front end. So not much has changed here, except we've simply extracted all the data out of this controller into a data transfer object, which we are going to be using later on to create the user. So if you go back to Postman and send that request, it should still work exactly the way it did before, except now the data is in a separate class. Okay, so this is looking pretty nice at this point. And in the next lesson, we are going to be looking at how to simplify our lives so that each time we need a data object, we don't have to manually create a PHP class and fill in the information. We should just be able to run a command to generate the class for us like you would in many other things in Laravel. So we will be looking at creating a command to generate our data classes in the next lesson.